witnesses today, air travel for those with disabilities poses a number of unique challenges. More often than not, it can be a very stressful experience. And in some instances, those with disabilities choose not to fly rather than deal with the obstacles that exist from the curb to the aircraft and beyond. However, for some, avoiding air travel altogether simply isn't a viable option, and we must do more to improve accessibility for those with disabilities. Mr. Page, in your testimony, you discussed many of these challenges, from inaccessible restrooms to injuries during the boarding process to lost or damaged mobility aids. You also discussed the need for proper training for those assisting passengers with disabilities, particularly when boarding and deplaning an aircraft. One area, though, that hasn't been discussed much that I would like to explore is what happens to passengers with disabilities in the event of an emergency. For those with disabilities, exiting an aircraft in the best of circumstances is a challenge, but in an emergency, it may be virtually impossible, especially considering current aircraft design and airplane training procedures. Currently, regulations requiring that all passengers be able to evacuate the aircraft within 90 seconds with half of the exits blocked. Yet, when the FAA ran evacuation tests between November 2019 and January of this year to evaluate the relationship between seat spacing and evacuation times, those tests did not include people with disabilities. This not only concerns me, but it also raises questions about the accuracy of these tests and how reflective they are of the flying public. I understand that passengers with disabilities should receive a safety briefing from the flight crew, the goal of which is to provide greater awareness of their accessibility needs. Yet I am concerned that this briefing rarely happens. In the case of my outstanding legislative director, Tracy Sutton, she indicates to me that briefing has never happened when she flies. Additionally, it is not clear to me what procedures are in place to assist those who are not able to evacuate on their own in an emergency. So, Mr. Page, can you share your thoughts on the FAA's choice to not include people with disabilities in its evacuation tests?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's disappointing that they're not included in the tests. To kind of echo your thoughts, for me, being a person with permanent disability, when it comes to boarding and deplaning, I'm first on and last off. I have had the evacuation briefing from flight attendants on occasion, but not on a full-time, regular basis. But in that briefing, the emergency evacuation process was explained to me as basically I would be dragged out of the plane, you know, by sitting on the floor and taken out the best they can. A timing, the definition of time escape is not really defined to me by the flight attendant at that time.
I'm equally disappointed. It's clear that the required training procedures for professional staff in the airline industry needs to be improved. I want to turn to our friends at Spirit Airlines. You talked about some of the improvements you made, and I really appreciate those improvements. However, according to the DOT, your airline ranked 13th out of 17th U.S. carriers for mishandled wheelchairs and scooters last year. And I wanted to hear directly from you what steps you're taking to improve your ranking in this important regard.
Yes, it's something, Congressman, that we know we had to improve upon. We have improved upon that. I'm happy to say, although there's a lot of work we can still do, for the first 2 months of this year, our complaints are down 45% year over year as it relates to disability-related complaints overall. As it relates to the securing and the delay of bringing the assisted devices back to the guest, we are down 29% on that number as well. So we do agree there's work to do. This is a topic that's extremely important to us and one that we feel passionate about. We know there's more we can do, but we're basically doing that just with better training, quite frankly. It's better training and making sure that we're saying the right things and making sure that the training is being followed through upon.
It's maybe an opportunity for your airline in particular to be a market leader in this area and maybe work with your staff to make sure that the necessary security protocols are followed for all passengers, including especially passengers that happen to have disabilities. Obviously, it's lacking based on my analysis, and that's an area that needs great improvement.
Yeah, it's disappointing to hear this information, and I can't speak specifically. I wasn't prepared to speak to that today, but we'll definitely take that away and make sure it's not something that we're lacking on. This is extremely
so much.
important.
Thank you.
Yes.
I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Katko, is now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for being here.